What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm break down what's going on with the market thus far, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. I want to talk about what's happening with the economic calendar for today and how things are looking going forward. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks. This offer ends in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market. Looking at SPY, this thing is very flat right now. In the after hours on Friday, we saw this thing push a little bit. It dropped, it actually kind of gapped down and dropped going into today before it bounced back up again. And we're just hovering around this 468 area. Now, looking at the current trend, there is a possibility of this thing trying to push just a little bit higher, right? I mentioned this yesterday as well, and we're actually pushing a bit in the pre-market. But the issue is, and this is like something that's very important, on Thursday and Friday of last week, it ended up pushing, right? But then the moves ended up failing, and we just remained range bound, right? We pushed and failed, pushed and failed. So are we about to see the same thing happen? That's why it's going to be very important to watch the resistance levels I talk about. Now, let's first talk about some data. I just want to remind you guys that at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, all right, we have the consumer inflationary expectations report coming out. At 11:30 a.m., we have the 3-month and the 6-month bill auctions coming out. And then we have Bostic from the Fed giving a speech at 12:30 p.m. Now, what's going to cause the most volatility? It could be at around 11 o'clock a.m. or 11:30 a.m. for the bill auctions. During the hour of 11 a.m., during that whole hour, we'll watch for volatility from these different catalysts. And that's pretty much it. Nothing else is like that crazy for today. But it's worth noting. On top of all of this, I just want to mention that, with the way the market is kind of like looking so far, the Dow Jones dropped 1.5% for the week. S&P 500 was down 0.6%. Nasdaq was down over 3%. So far, the market's starting off kind of weak for this year. It's on a very, very weak start, but it doesn't guarantee anything for the end of the year. But for now, we're going to be just paying attention to any continuations that we're getting. With that being said, we have CPI on Thursday. Don't forget about that. There's some news that Boeing shares, they've dropped in the pre-market after the FAA grounded about 171 of the company's 737 MAX 9 planes. This had to do with different inspections and things like that. So it's worth noting. On top of this, there's more things going on right now. Congress is working to basically avoid a partial government shutdown. They released a deal for federal funding for the fiscal 2024. At least that's from the House and the Senate, and they're writing to pass legislation by January 19th. There's also news coming out that the U.S.'s largest radio company is going to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. That's some negative news, and that's pretty much it for now. So those are the main headlines, at least for now. And that's pretty much it for the news. So I'm going to now focus on the charts. SPY is kind of like rejecting off 468, looking a little weak, but we're going to be looking to see if this bullish crossover in the PPO could give us one little push. So 469.33, that's going to be our first resistance, and 470.54. Now, as a reminder, guys, if a SPY could close above 470, that's going to be a little bullish. If we close above 472, that's going to be even more bullish for the chart. If we end up breaking down, we end up testing 465, we lose this support, we close below that, so that's going to be very bearish. We're going to be expecting 462. Those are the two most important ranges. Make sure you watch this range right over here. This 470 to 471 zone is resistance, and the 465 zone to 466 as support. So how do I think this is going to pan out? Well, there's still a possibility. This thing already got the little push that I was talking about during the pre-market. You could push a little bit more. Make sure you watch that 469.33 to 470.5 resistance. SPY is looking kind of weak. So if it does get a little pop, it might pop temporarily and come back down. I called this move out yesterday that it might like push up and then reject and just remain intraday, just like range bound. And I think that that's what's going to likely happen, at least for the time being. So still looking kind of weak, might pop upon open and come back down, trade sideways in this 467 range. If we lose this, 465 could be tested again. We might just trade sideways within this range, right? The range I called out for the majority of the day. So I'm not expecting anything too crazy today. The best move is going to happen during CPI. The QQQ is very similar to SPY. Made an attempt, so it's testing this green trend line. If we break this green trend line right here on the QQQ, and that's drawn from basically this, right? We had this green trend line as resistance. If we break this green trend line, okay, we're going to be looking for a push towards, if it gets above 398, I mean, we have the potential to go to 399.5 or just within that range. If we look at, give me 1 second, the QQQ, this is attempting to push on the PPO. We have 399 as a critical resistance. We have to break this green trend line first, and so far we're kind of failing to do so. So if we reject off of this, expect to move back down to 395. We could get a big rejection if we fail to break the green trend line of resistance. If we break it, it's going to push it for 399, but it's looking like it's rejecting thus far, so we'll be watching this very carefully. If we get that rejection, watch 396.5 as support and 395. And if it does reject, we're most likely going to come down to 395 to fill this wick. So there's a very good chance of a rejection on the QQQ. We'll see how it reacts to the green trend line. If we do reject, expect to move to the downside that's coming. I did say it might push up a bit, right, compared to where we were last week. We did push up already. We actually saw this thing go also almost 398. So the move to the push up happened during the pre-market. So we got that little push to the upside. Could we push a little bit more? It's always a possibility, but so far it's kind of rejecting off the green trend line. So this pump that we got is like, it's still looking kind of weak right now. So we'll watch and see if we get this rejection. If we get it, it's going to be sinking a lot lower. And so far, what's happening to the QQQ. Let me talk about Tesla before Nvda. Tesla's looking kind of flat because once again, I'm getting all these negative pieces of news. And now that it's kind of like rejecting from here, I mean, I could redraw like a trend line like this just to show you this resistance. We're going to be watching to see how Tesla does here off this channel. We had this previous zone that was very important. We had this nice wedge that was forming. Still going to keep that up there because of the fact that this could still act as support resistance. And then we have this nice support around this 234 area. So if Tesla breaks this white trend line right here, if we break above this, look for a push for 238. If that breaks, there's 240 and 242 that's coming. For Tesla to turn bullish, you want to see this thing close above 240 or even 242. If we reject off this white trend line, you're going to be looking for, this move back down towards 236 and then 234. If we fail at 234, we're going to turn bearish. We need to close above 234. If we close below it, that's going to be very bearish for Tesla. This pre-market is looking very flat, so be very careful with Tesla. The reason why 234 is so important, that's going to be the most important support, is because on the daily time frame, our daily 200 EMA is at 234.1. So if we lose that, we're going to turn bearish. So with this resistance right here, this white trend line acting as resistance, I can even change the color. Let's make this yellow so it's easy to distinguish. This yellow trend line now, okay, it's the yellow trend line of resistance. Tesla's starting to reject right here. It did push a little bit. Now it's just kind of stuck. So we'll see if we get one more pop, because every morning Tesla tends to push up. It tends to push up a little bit. It's been pushing up since the pre-market just a little bit because it gapped down. So it could attempt to go a little bit higher, but I think the move will ultimately fail. So a little pop and drop is likely going to come. We'll see if we can try to break this yellow trend line. As of right now, it's kind of struggling to do so. So we're just going to be very patient with Tesla. It might kind of pop and drop and just remain range bound. There's a very good chance that that's going to happen for most of today. Make sure you watch and see if Tesla could close above 234. If we fail to do so, it's going to turn very bearish. On Nvda is kind of looking decent. I mentioned to you all that Nvda was looking strong. And if you look at Nvda, as predicted, Nvda is looking pretty strong right now. If you look at Nvda, let me just show you guys the charts. The daily is looking kind of decent, and then on the 4-hour time frame, it's looking kind of strong. So I just want to mention that with this Wyckoff accumulation schematic, which I called out the inverse head and shoulders on Nvda a while back. It's forming a cup and handle. We have this blue trend line, which was previous support. It's now going to become resistance, as a reminder, right? This is going to become our resistance, this blue trend line. So with that being said, the reason why I'm saying that is because when we go back here, we have a cup and handle, and now we're just going to be watching this resistance. We have 495 is going to be our support. If we lose this, there's 492, which is not that strong. 490, 488, and then 485 are some supports. Resistance, make sure you watch 496.5. It's the blue trend line right here. And we have 498 to 500 above that. That's going to be our next key level. And then we have 504 and 508. 178. So how do I think that Nvidia is going to move? I think that we have a very, very nice cup and handle like structure, but it's going to be testing this resistance very slowly. So I think that it's going to be hitting some tight resistance. So I don't think that Nvidia is going to just break out and explode. I think that between where we are now at this blue trend line and up to about 500, we're hitting some tight resistance. We might see this thing kind of hit, reject, attempt to go up again, reject, and just trade kind of sideways up here at least for some time. We're entering this chop zone, so it's like this like 490 to 500 area. Guys, notice how we had a lot of sideways price action. I think that Nvidia is going to enter a sideways phase as we hit this resistance. That's likely what's going to happen. So watch this resistance carefully, especially as we get close to 500. Might start to slow down. Watch for sideways price action within this intraday range, and be very careful on Nvidia. Last but not least, we have Apple stock, and this is going to be one of the most important ones for the markets. Apple is an absolute monster, and its effect is very profound. So like I said yesterday, guys, my prediction has come true so far. I said that Apple's going to likely push. We have been pushing upwards going into open, like if you compare it to where we closed. But here's the problem. I also told you all that Apple was looking very range bound to me and that we might just see it go back and forth and back and forth. So far, that is what's happening. And we'll see if that ends up being true, right? We kind of, like, if you look at the last few days, we're just stuck between 183 as resistance and 180 as support, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. Apple might just remain range bound. Unless we lose 180, then we're going to turn bearish. If we lose that, the 200 EMA is going to be tested all the way down to about 178. So then we're going to turn bearish if we lose 180. So as of right now, looks like we're just going to be range bound between 180 and 183. If you want to be bullish, you want to see it get above 183.5 and try to close above 183. If you're bearish, you want to see it lose 180 and then come down to 178. It looks like it might just remain range bound for now. And we'll see if it holds 180, because if it closes below that, guys, that's going to be a bad sign. This is going to drag the market lower. So just be very careful with Apple. As of right now, it's range bound. I think it's just going to continue to be range bound for now. All right, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for listening. This is your pre-market update. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you and peace out.